could you come to the conclusion that how Buddhism is also like a secular philosophy or the discourse that means Buddhism is itself many times acted like a religion, not in terms of the, as you mentioned, that the God and prophet, but when it comes to the dealing with the state and sharing the equal protection or the equality to the all religion or the other sects and other religions.
You have referred about some of the symbols which Baba Sahib took from the Buddhist topic, like emblem, Ashok Chakra, even design of Sapru house, it has the stupa form. Even design of Bhabha Atomic Center, that is a design by Baba Sahib. There is a lot of Baba Sahib was simultaneously, he has a skill of architect, which he took all the semiotic, their signifier and signified from the Buddhism. That's why this images has a lot of importance. That Baba Sahib was aware about that. Even you go to the mill in the college, even they have the pillars. Baba Sahib used that symbols. Even the design of mill in the college, you see the light of the class, what kind of light enter in mill in the college, because that was the vision of Baba Sahib. So what do you think about this side of Baba Sahib, which is get neglected? The Gary Tatakau, I had a long discussion with him, and this fellow was really, he goes and sees that kind of things very meticulously. The way you spoke, is it there is a necessity to work on this area? Which new area which can give a lot of semiotic to the society? He's putting his images. Every person has, there is the elements of the decoration of the Buddhist images. That transform is come. Even houses. Now you see the gate of houses. You see the Vigyan Bhavan, that is the influence. You see the gate of Ajanta's cave. That is basically the people ka patta. The leaves of the people ka katta would cut from the side and come. It's that the design come from that Bodhi tree. It means the Bodhi tree, there is a representation. There is a signified and a significant. So what are you? You are in the Pune. You are in the center of one of that very cultural state. Anybody is working on this? And if not working, Manuski can take that project.
Yeah, one more point. If there is somebody before me.
Okay. My question is to ma'am. Ma'am, in the beginning portions of your speech, you had said that religion, like according to Ambedkar, religion was not about resolving the conflict between the private and the public. So my question is that when we speak about the entities private and public, both social and political, is coming into action. In Buddha and his Dhamma, Dr. Ambedkar says that for creation of an ideal and free society, we need Dhamma plus magistrate, which means Dhamma plus law. This is my first question. My second question is that you said that he questions the very idea of bhikkhus. In Buddha and his Dhamma, he himself says that the bhikkhu is a torch bearer of Buddha's ideal society. So I would like to get a clarification on that.
No, I am just bringing to your notice, if you can do something about it. While these symbols are there after 1947, well, please take an appointment with the Prime Minister once. No. And go and sit in his waiting room. You should sit in his waiting room, Prime Minister waiting room, and look at this upper portion. The entire caste system is painted by a Maharashtrian painter in 1923. When I have written in Hindu, no response. So the Brahmi, the Kshatriya, the Vaishya, the British allowed. British were always under the influence of, no. But that also coexists very well, you know. Yeah.
Listen to my question.
Hello, this question is to Lokmitra sir. There are several studies on Punjab by Professor Ronkiram and some other scholars also about how there is casteism and untouchability in Punjab, and how the scheduled castes have been shifted to their local deras with the local babas. And I also come from that region where there is a high number of these babas and deras which give space to the scheduled castes. And another perspective there about scheduled caste people. I am not able to articulate it, but like Buddhism, how Buddhism is not an option. They don't see Buddhism as an option because their daily activities are their babas and deras have given the spaces to scheduled caste for their daily activities. The upper caste Sikhs are not giving spaces in the Gurudwaras and the Shiromani Gurudwara Prabandhak Committee that operates the Gurudwaras of the world. But those babas, those deras are giving proper spaces, and unfortunately unfortunately we don't see any area or any particular pracharak or any above of the Buddhism. So I want to ask you, what is the way forward? Like they have already moved from Hinduism to Sikhism, and then Sikhism to Babas, and from Babas to any other Babas. So my question is to you is that is the way forward to Buddham Shanam Gacchami to the Sikhs. And
I have some additional question. I'm very important for this because I'm telling you, because I'm waiting for it. I came specially for it. Lokmitra ji, when you are going to introduce 3 symbols, one is the wheel of life, second is spiral path, and third is the mandala of 5 Buddha. Because Baba Sahib has some few collection of Thangka painting.
Sorry, can I just interrupt you?
Yes.
My subject was the Constitution.
Yes, I know that. These all symbols are
So we discuss with him personally. You can discuss him personally.
I'll last question is by Santosh, Dr. Santosh. You've been raising hand.
Sir, I am raising now.
You can ask later. This is the last one.
Sir.
Okay. Be brief. Yeah.
Okay, my question is to ma'am. Ma'am, while in your speech you said that Dr. Ambedkar's criticism on conversion, that there was no distributive justice and human rights in Buddhism. So can you please explain that point? Because in Buddha and Karl Marx, Dr. Ambedkar has explained distributive justice.
Yeah, fine. Santosh.
Yes, I have a very brief question and simple query to clarify. When Dr. Ambedkar why he said, I just want a comment from Professor Vidhu Verma. When he said that being an untouchable in this country, nothing is impossible for me to do anything. So I'm not converting to gain any political power, but my conversion is spiritual. I wonder why he said that. When it comes to the sort of state and secular state and the arguments you are producing, I wanted to understand in the light of the argument you produce. And very well pointed out by Professor Thora that the painting, probably that's where Dr. Ambedkar chose the Dhammachakra Parivartanaya at the President's chair, taking that slogan probably is an answer to the colonial and the Brahminical power in today's time, to say that I'm borrowing this from the Dhammachakra Parivartana Sutta of the Buddha. Thank you.
It doesn't stop. In Rajasthan, I
I thought you are one of
Well,
goes on.
yeah, so first Lokmitra, please.
Okay, the first question was to you, that's why.
Okay. Just a question to you. You said that you disagree with me. I couldn't understand where you disagree with me. I do not defend aspects of traditional Buddhism. I may defend some, but I certainly won't defend all. So, but we can discuss that later. The state patronizing of Buddhism is not necessarily to me, but I very much doubt that Dr. Ambedkar would have wanted state patronage for Buddhism. Now, you will all understand this better than me. I believe it's not a positive thing in Thailand and effectively Sri Lanka and Burma. Also, I believe that the Buddhism that Dr. Ambedkar was developing, and which I don't believe he had time enough to see through. You see through things, you develop things, especially through practice. And he didn't have a chance for that. He got up to the point of conversion, he wrote the Buddha and his Dhamma, but he didn't have time to see it work out in practice, and I think he would have taken things further. So I don't think you can see Buddhism as one sort of general mass approach in the East. I think Dr. Ambedkar, that this is a great thing. He brought new life to Buddhism, new thinking to Buddhism, and I think it's of value not just to scheduled castes, not just to India, but to Asia and even the West too. Very different than the Western approach to Buddhism. Savvy's point. Now, I have to restate that I was asked to speak about the Constitution, and I'm sure that Dr. Ambedkar was aware of the power of symbols, and you know that better than me. I would love us to do some work on this, and I hope Maitri Vir will do this at Nagaloka. He's been talking about it, and I hope that those of you involved in this area can do so. And we have there, for those of you who don't know, Nagaloka is a college in Nagpur for Buddhist training on a 15-acre campus that Maitri Vir, Santosh Raj and I are involved with, and Professor Tourette's been very supportive, and Sathi and others. The centre of this campus is a 35-foot high statue of the walking, not the standing Buddha, the walking Buddha. And we took this because Dr. Ambedkar said at one point, I like to see the Buddha walking. So walking out to people, not just sitting. And you know, this is a very, very important symbol, and I hope that you will at least appreciate us for doing that, Savvy. I can't really comment on the situation in Punjab. I know that there's a lot of interest there. I know that the greatest weakness of the Buddhist movement throughout India, not just Punjab, but absolutely everywhere, is teaching and guidance. I say this not only about Buddhism, but also about Ambedkarism. Wherever I go, I just find so much lack of clarity. We're trying to teach people the basics in Nagpur at Nagaloka, and you know, some of our friends have been talking about developing different Nagalokas in different parts of the country, but there's a limit to what a few people can do. But basic teachings, basic clarity, as many as people, and sharing as much as possible. You don't have to become a monk, you don't even have to become a full-timer, but just that basic knowledge and sharing what you've learned. So I think that's all.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you for the questions. I'll quickly just go through. I think two of these are, miscommunication, but let me quickly go through the first two of them. I think the first thing about relationship with the secular, I didn't think that Buddhism is secular. I think what I was trying to do is to place Ambedkar's interpretation of Buddhism, which I wrote several years ago and which has been criticized, and I've got a lot of feedback and I'm trying to respond to it. So now I'm trying to look into the debates of secularization and secularism, and then trying to understand how do we interpret Ambedkar's views on Buddhism. So I didn't say that Buddhism is secular and so on. But just to help you out, there's this whole debate about secularization as well as secularism being questioned today, that with modernization we assume that religion will fade and that it will become a part of the past. And so will several other identities. But now we find religion is playing a very, very important role in our public domain. So that is why the secularization thesis has been questioned. Why I bring in secularism in this paper is that I want to argue that maybe Ambedkar was a little ahead of his times, much ahead of both Gandhi and Nehru, in seeing the secularization thesis as having very weak foundations, and that maybe he was right in saying that religion is going to play a dominant role, and if Dalits have to be segregated, that they have to be separate from the Hindu community, then they might need to think of a way of selfhood and subjectivity in religious terms, which does not mean traditional Buddhism, but a religion which he tried to interpret. Okay, so it was not that Buddhism is secular, I wasn't saying. Secondly, the question is about bhikkhu. No, I think there I was trying to clarify, because I was trying to read through a lot of stuff which I've written. There is a critique of traditional Buddhism in Ambedkar, and he tries to give you a new role for the bhikkhu. So he does not criticize it, but I'm saying that he sees the bhikkhu as much more than just a person depending on alms and so on. He sees this in a more, and I think it does have potential, especially in our NGO kind of sector, and in the way we look at philanthropy today. I think we could expand that and give it some newer meaning, So if we have more time to discuss this, I would say that yes, the idea of the bhikkhu is very, very interesting. We should reclaim some of these ideas and give our own interpretations. And I think he was trying to do that in the 1950s in a very limited way, but he did try to do that. So it was not that he was against bhikkhus, he was just trying to see what their role could possibly be in this reinterpretation. Third is about that it doesn't have critique of distributive justice. I think there was a miscommunication on that. I was arguing that when Ambedkar wrote this Buddha Dharma, he was criticized by, and he has been criticized by scholars within the Buddhist tradition. Because Buddhism is not one line. I mean, there's Mahayana, Hinayana, there are several strands. You have Buddhism in Ladakh, you have, in India we have so many different kinds. We have Tibetan Buddhism. So when he started talking about this, they said, why are you looking at it for giving you some redemption? Why do you think that those who are oppressed will find some meaning when it has no idea of social justice? When it does. So he was criticized by experts, the Buddhist scholars, Western Buddhist scholars also have made this comment, that Buddhism cannot be relied upon to give you social justice. It doesn't have this idea of distribution of resources and so on. So it is not really a theory of this kind which he's trying to push and give a new interpretation. And finally, I think about conversion being spiritual and so on. I think there are many interpretations. I think I was doing a philosophical exercise of trying to see how we can read Ambedkar today in 2019. This was written 70 years ago, and he had thought about this several years, even before, several decades before that. So how do we, this generation, look at this text? And I was just trying to give you the new interpretation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At the end, I just wish to inform certain things, especially to Lokmitra and Salim. There is a student called Shabana Ali who was sitting here. She is working on the Buddhist symbols and all in northern India as well as in Maharashtra. Very good work she is producing. Now, as far as the state grants are concerned, we have this problem of endowment grants which are being granted by the state, by the respective chief ministers. And we need to understand as to whom it is being given. And we need to conduct a very empirical study on that. I can quote you certain examples, but it requires an empirical studies. So it's a question that people has to take it up and see as to how the state becomes a partisan and becomes therefore unconstitutional. The third is that Baba Sahib has always quoted the Nikayas. It's not that for everything, whatever he argued, he quoted Nikayas, he quoted those evidences. and people have not read those evidences very seriously, and and that's the reason that Ananda Kausalyan makes 4 conditions that any sect has to be Buddhist sect. I won't repeat that. The third is that Bhavis Pratijna, which he formulated, I have not seen anyone proving what is non-Buddhist in it. I'm sorry to say. I have not seen anybody proving what is non-Buddhist in it. And at the end, I thank all of you for making the session very lively, and I end up by just chanting one small Mahamangal Sutra. It says, Asevanacha balana panditanacha tasevana pujacha pujanang etan mangal nritya. मूर्खों की संगति नहीं करना, अच्छों की संगति करना, यही मंगल नृत्य है। थैंक यू।